As the Taliban return, Afghanistan's past threatens its future. The freedoms Afghans have gained since 2001 are in danger as people with very strong and over-the-top beliefs complete their takeover of the nation, helped by the U.S. leaving. Where in the world is Afghanistan? Afghanistan is located in Central Asia with Iran to the west and Pakistan to the east. Tall, forbidding mountains and dry deserts covered most of the landscape. Landlocked, not having any sea or ocean coast, and mountainous, Afghanistan borders 6 countries and is towered over by the impressive and inconvenient Hindu Kush mountain range, which looks down over Kapisa province, a county. The country's strategic location has interested traders in coming to trade and invaders in taking over for millions of years. The hard-to-travel mountains, land, rivers, etc. has frustrated other countries and their own armies. The landforms also provided protection for guerrilla warriors. In the blue haze of hookah smoke that filled Kandahar's Café Delight, a small restaurant, on a recent weekend afternoon, it was easy to forget there's a war outside. Young male professionals with well-groomed beards and mullet cuts slumped in plush, fancy, and comfortable chairs, sipped espresso, very strong coffee, beneath flat screens that pulsed with sexy Turkish and Indian music videos, the bare midriffs of women blurred by channel censors. This was still Afghanistan, a very traditional Islamic community of people. But the customers belonged to a more easygoing and agreeable, well-mannered generation that came of age after the fall of the Taliban terrorists. It is a generation with no memory of the terrorist government with very strict religious laws. These people born in this southern city have little memory of the Taliban that blocked television, music, and movies they had forbidden. The group that did not allow men to trim their beards and forced women to wear head-to-toe burqa, religious face and body coverings. This is Sumbul Ria, 17, a student at Afghanistan's National Institute of Music. She is from a remote village in Nuristan. Her father was kidnapped and ransomed 3 times by the Taliban, she says, for letting his daughters study music. This is Samula, 16, a Taliban recruit charged with the crime of planting a bomb targeting Afghan troops. He is in a youth therapy center in Faizabad. His father, who commands an anti-Taliban militia, armed citizens, refused to sign papers for his son's release. He wanted his son to stay in the center. Small restaurant owner Ahmadullah Akbari returned from 2 years in Dubai, a more open-minded and intelligent city, in 2018. He started his business in Aino Maina, a huge modern city on the outer areas of Kandahar. Behind the small restaurant counter a few months ago, Akbari watched and supervised TV cameras he had just installed to stop sticky bombs, cheap bombs triggered by mobile phones. They were targeting people in charge, anti-Taliban minorities, and news writers, as well as random civilians. These bombs were the extremist strategy to get rid of those who opposed them and create fear. The Taliban were made brave by a February 2020 agreement with the United States and the Afghan government. American military planned to leave by the end of August this year. The Taliban had established their grip on rural areas away from cities and were closing in on urban cities at amazing speed. Still, with its eucalyptus-lined streets, luxury houses, and shopping centers lit by nearly round-the-clock electricity, the Aino Maina gated neighborhood offered an atmosphere of neighborhood normalness for middle and upper-class Afghans who mostly work for the government. "We have no worries here," said Suleiman Aryan, 28, an English teacher who works and lives in the gated neighborhood with his wife and 2 children. That was then. The calm has been shattered. Kote Sangi Marketplace in western Kabul hums with early morning activity during the Islamic holy month of Ramadan in April. Nearly all of Afghanistan's 39 million people are Muslim. Most are Sunnis. Minority Shiites are being terrorized by the Islamic State and the Taliban. On August 15th, the Taliban entered the capital of Kabul as President Ashraf Ghani was reported to have escaped the country, and gunfire and panic broke out in the streets. Days earlier, the Islamic radical warriors, those believing that extreme methods must be used to create huge changes in society, took control of Kandahar. Kandahar is the country's second largest city, along with a string of capital cities. The State Department and Pentagon were racing to evacuate personnel and some of the Afghans who worked for the American government from the U.S. Embassy, a U.S. government office, in Kabul, where the American flag had been lowered, drawing comparisons to the fall of Saigon. What do the Taliban believe? The Taliban ruled according to a strict belief of Islamic Sharia law. Public executions and whippings were common, and women were mostly barred from working or studying and forced to wear an all-covering burqa, religious face and body covering, in public. Female infants, children, and young women have a forced surgery on their privates to keep control and power over them and to prove themselves as property of the husband when they get married. This is also done to prove property ownership of the children that come from marital relations, intercourse. This surgery also ensures no pleasure from intercourse in order to make sure of this control. Marital relations are very painful for wives. They are made to believe that their natural privates are dirty and ugly. This practice causes many health problems and even death in females. The Taliban banned Western, European, and North American books and films and destroyed interesting historical and ancient objects from other traditions, including 1,500-year-old giant statues of the Buddha in central Bamiyan Valley. What is their connection to the Al-Qaeda? The Taliban gave a safe place for the Al-Qaeda, a militant, aggressive, and strict group led by Osama bin Laden. Al-Qaeda set up training camps in Afghanistan, which it used to prepare for terrorist attacks around the world, including the September 11, 2001 attacks on the United States. Fighting for control, the Taliban rose up out of a civil war, a war between groups that all live in one country, in the 1990s, after the Soviets were driven out. The Islamic militant, aggressive and strict group seized control of Kandahar in 1994 and the central government in Kabul in 1996, ruling most of Afghanistan until the U.S. invaded in 2001, 6 to 8 years before you were born. September 11 attacks, also called 9/11 attacks, were a series of airline hijackings and suicide attacks committed in 2001 by 19 militants, fighters connected with the Islamic extremist group Al-Qaeda, against targets in the United States, the deadliest terrorist attacks on American soil in U.S. history. The Afghanistan War was an international conflict in Afghanistan beginning in 2001 that was triggered by the September 11 attacks. The goals of the war. Number 1, toppling the Taliban, was successful. Number 2, defeating the Taliban militarily and rebuilding core institutions, roads, hospitals, government, schools, and military of the Afghan state, was somewhat successful. Number 3, putting into use a way of reaching goals of protecting the population from Taliban attacks and supporting efforts to rehabilitate those who supported the Taliban, was unfortunately unsuccessful. The Afghan military and police units taking over security duties appeared to be poorly prepared to hold off the Taliban. They're now retaking control of many areas, using rural country secure places to start winning or gaining power to advance on cities as the U.S. withdraws. Pre-9/11, the year 2000 shown on the map. The Taliban control most provinces, which are states or counties, and their capitals. The Northern Alliance, Friendly Partnership, controls 10% of Afghanistan in the mountainous northeast. After the surge in 2012, after a 2-year surge, a sudden military rush, in U.S. forces, NATO pulls with force control of most areas from the Taliban, pushing them back to their rural strongholds. Biden defends his messy U.S. pullout from Afghanistan. He faces criticism over the Taliban's lightning conquests of the war-torn country. How many more American lives is it worth? Asked the Democrat president. He said that despite the messy pullout, there was never a good time to withdraw U.S. forces. He faces withering criticism over the Taliban's lightning conquests of the war-torn country. On Sunday, the Taliban declared victory after Afghan President Ashraf Ghani fled and his government collapsed. Mr. Biden's address followed a dramatic day at Kabul's international airport, where hundreds of civilians, desperate to flee the country, forced their way inside on Monday. Many thronged the runway, running alongside a moving military transporter aircraft as it prepared for takeoff. Some clung to the side of a plane, and at least 2 of them are reported to have perished when they fell from the aircraft after it had left the ground. American troops killed 2 armed Afghans who were part of the crowd that breached the airport perimeter. 7 people reportedly died in total. As of August 18th, the Taliban has already shot a woman for not wearing a burqa. Meanwhile, concern grows over Americans that are stuck in Afghanistan. They have been receiving death threats from the Taliban and are currently in hiding.